Tim Kaine, our boy Timmy Kaine. He's doing some last minute stuff to give banks the ability to be even more predatory lenders. It's fantastic. It's just good. It's just good. Tim Kaine, who was a fair lending attorney, who was also the pick of Hillary Clinton in 2016. The worst. Tim Kaine is the quintessential corporate Democrat. You know, leads with his values and robotically turns like a jackwagon to say things that only benefit corporations that pay him. So this article is in the Intercept. It's written by David Dayen, who I've referenced many times. He wrote the book Chain of Title. He has been very much on top of banking and lending policy and all that stuff, and which I very much appreciate as somebody who had my home taken away from me as a direct result of policies from Obama and some from Bush, but mainly Obama. In short, Obama let the banks steal my home. Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, has offered an amendment essentially striking a controversial provision from bipartisan bank deregulation bill. Right? I've been talking about this bill. So the Democrats just love cozying up with Republicans so they can deregulate banks. Bill S-2155 that would limit tools prosecutors use to detect mortgage lending discrimination. So in the last recession, the people that were hurt the most by this type of lending discrimination were black and brown people. I've talked about this before. Obama wiped away black wealth. He helped create 5.2 million foreclosures. That's not 5.2 million people. That's 5.2 million families that were affected by this. And the two communities hit the worst by it were black and brown communities. So hope and change. At issue is Section 104, which exempts all banks and credit unions issuing 500 mortgages or less a year from Enhanced Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, or HMDA. Data requirements used to identify lending discrimination. This would cover 85% of all regulated mortgage lenders from the new requirements, which were part of the Dodd-Frank Act. The 17 members of the Democratic caucus who support S-2155 have taken significant heat from their colleagues over this measure, which critics believe would deeply damage fair lending enforcement by making new HMDA data incomplete and unreliable. That's how they do it. Pitch away here, a little there, make it, you know, they can't just flat out say we're going to go after, but oh, the data was inconclusive because they voted to deregulate any type of banking regulation. They are trying to strip away. They're doing it under Trump. Obama did it. Bush did it. Fucking Bill Clinton repealed Glass-Steagall, which was FDR banking regulation, right? That's what created the Great Depression in 28 or 29, unregulated banks, right? So they passed all these laws when FDR got into office, regulating all these banks, right? And the most prosperous time in America, the 50s and 60s, right? Post-World War II, that Republicans, right-wingers always like, that was when America was so great. I mean, blacks had to sit on the back of the bus and women, you know, were second-class citizens. But yeah, it was great. But in terms of just the economy, this is the thing they always conveniently forget to talk about. Why the American economy was so good in the 50s and 60s was it was the most regulated time in America. Not just banking regulation, corporate regulation. It was the most regulated time. It had a higher tax bracket for people were paying more in taxes. And we had a thriving middle class. See how that works? For most people. I mean, a lot of black people were shut out from that, but even then there was like in Los Angeles post-World War II, this was a place in the country where black people could come and own property and open up businesses where they couldn't in the South and stuff like that. So you could see like wow, what America could, if we kept that regulation and kept that thriving middle class, how, wow, I wonder where we would be 70 years later. Oh no, it's all been deregulated. We spend all our money on war. We don't have good, we've shipped out all the jobs, and this is why. It's little shit like this. And then the Democrats, these little bitches that play, they're not helping anyone out. Kaine, as I said, who began his career as a fair lending attorney, issued a statement last week praising S2155, arguing that it improves current law through a targeted approach to assist community banks. But he added this. Community banks, we've talked about that. They're trying to, they're using that as a bullshit tactic, right? Community banks, that's what they're saying, but they're actually, it's just more way, they're saying community banks, but that's a front to deregulate, to let the big banks get more deregulation. The bill is a compromise, Tim Kaine said, and I think it can be improved in certain respects. The legislation currently requires that banks writing 96% of American mortgages must comply with Elevated Home Mortgage Disclosure Act reporting requirements. That's the HMDA. I have filed an amendment to the bill to require even more banks to provide enhanced data on mortgages, and I hope we will get the opportunity to vote on this change. Here's what really is happening. Kaine's amendment would require banks to provide more data. In fact, it would lower the exemption threshold from banks issuing 500 mortgages a year to 100. And that's where the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau put the threshold in its initial rule for open-ended loans. But the Kaine amendment did roll back the threshold significantly, going almost as close as a senator can to saying to his opponents, "You were right and I was wrong." It's just more platitude bullshit. The 4 Democratic senators who co-authored S2155, John Tester, Democrat from Montana, Joe Donnelly, Democrat from Indiana, Heidi Heitkamp, she's great. Oh, she's so great. The Democrat from North Dakota. Why are you a Democrat, Heidi? Just say you're a Republican. Why are you? I don't get it. You're the most Republican. And Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, co-sponsored the amendment, agreeing that effectively nullifying Section 104 would be the right move. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell needs those Democrats on the bill to get to 60 votes. Why are they doing this? Right? If these Democrats, who are all from the banking committee, ran from this and said no, other Democrats would follow, and then the Republicans would have to deal, just like the Affordable Care Act. That was actually a place where they kind of listened on keeping Obamacare, right? People spoke up and said, I don't want this taken away, when people realized, oh, Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are the same thing. Ugh. The Democrats could walk away. They need 60 votes. They're giving this to Mitch McConnell because they're bought off by the banks. Hillary Clinton, who took, what, $600,000 from Goldman Sachs? And she's some big liberal feminist hero? Give me a fucking break. Tester, Donnelly, and Heitkamp are all facing re-election in states Trump won handily and where he is still popular. Oh, so you want to get re-elected in your dumb state. You know, it's a really good article. I've been following Dave Dayen. He's a friend of mine. I would suggest reading his book. It just shows you how weak the Democrats are, and they're not fighting for any of you. They're not fighting for any of you. They didn't fight for me when I lost my home 8 years ago now. You know, this week, March of 2010. And when people say, how come you didn't vote for Clinton? Yeah, because Hillary, and I don't like her and her husband. They're pro-banking, pro-war corporatists. And her running mate was this asshole, Tim Kaine. So if you live in the districts of any of these Democrats that are up for election, vote them the fuck out. Primary them, man. Get progressives in there. Make sure they're not CIA Democrats. Make sure they're real progressives. Thanks for watching the show, you guys. Thanks for supporting independent media.